Hello and welcome to MenTalk2 Presents. So MenTalk2, as part of the Talk Out group, are launching an interview series. So we are looking to bring what we class as interesting people onto this really short interview process to talk about the impact of mental health within the workplace. So my name's Dan Rowe and I head up the MenTalk2 division for Talk Out, and I'm really chuffed as episode 1 that we've got a very special guest with us today, and that's Jill Mead, who is Chief Exec of the Talk Out Group. So welcome, Jill.
Hi, Dan. Thank you very much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for joining us. So a good place to start, I think, is a quick kind of introduction, and that's just to yourself and also to the Talk Out Group, if possible.
Yeah, that's fine. So yes, I'm Jill. We started the Talk Out Voice for Mental Health part of the business around 12 months ago now. And that was really as a result of me wanting to be out there educating businesses on what more can be done to create psychologically safe workspaces where people feel able to talk about their mental health, because I truly believe when you've got that people can thrive at work. And at the moment, I think the perception of people with mental health issues is very different to that. So we set about creating Talk Out last July, August. And since then, we have, as you know, Dan, grown to 6 people in that particular business, including yourself, who we brought on to kind of head up this initiative. But what's been really, really good for us, I think we've all had our challenges through lockdown and through, suddenly finding ourselves working from home remotely and not being able to do the things that we were doing before. And I still really wanted to make sure that we were carrying on with our mission of breaking the stigma around workplace mental health. So we started to think about different ways that we could do that. And obviously a really effective way of being able to reach people when you can't physically meet them or you can't do any training with them is to think about digital means. And it became very clear that we could reach people in this new world, or what our new normal may be, through some really innovative digital ways of using technology. So we brought in a team who are now Talk Out Tech, who have developed the Talk Out app for us, and we're just about to acquire a business that specialises in VR, and that's to use virtual reality to help people just immerse themselves in the world of workplace mental health. So that was 2 really exciting developments for us that we kind of got going through lockdown. And as a result of that, now we've created the Talk Out Group. So we will be a team of 25, 26 people once the acquisition is done. And we're all with the same mission, which is to help and support businesses with their mental health of their employees. So that was kind of the journey of Talk Out in a year. So it's been great. It's been really, really good. There's so much to do, Dan. So much more to do.
It's amazing to think that 12 months, so much progress can be made to create a group that you must be really proud of where you've got to within that 12 months. And I imagine quite excited about where the next 12 months, where the next 3 years, next 5 years, what Talk Out will kind of look at that. And I think, don't worry, I'll not put you on the spot and ask where we're going to be in 5 years. However, I think one of the really kind of key points, and I know when I joined the business, one of the things that I was really impressed of from meeting yourself and kind of doing a bit of research was around that. It was one of your first hires was to hire a clinical researcher, which is probably not where a lot of people would go. And that was because you wanted to underpin everything with our own research. And I'm really keen to find out where that kind of idea came from, because I think a lot of people will go, well, where are we going to get our sales from, or where are we going to get our content from, or where? And I think that would be the focus. But for you, it was, no, actually the research thing is really important. So talk to me where that kind of thought came from, and kind of how you went about kind of implementing that, and what you've seen from the research that have been undertaken as well.
Yeah. So when I was thinking about Talk Out and the organisation, the type of organisation that I wanted it to be, I was very clear in my mind that whatever we do has to have a lasting impact on a business. It's got to be able to be interpreted in each business in their own way, and people are going to have to be able to put into practice the learning, the education, to truly make a difference. I didn't want to be an organisation that would just provide a training course and then come out again. And there are many really, really credible organisations out there, but there are also others that will just grab a load of content from, kind of sources that are not credible, put it together and then deliver it as a course. And the reason for bringing in the researcher that had the clinical psychology background was to make sure that everything that we do is underpinned in that research, and it's got the latest thought leadership in there, but it's translated through the trainers and through the design of our courses in a way that lands with organisations. So I was very clear that I wanted that credibility and that accreditation, and that's how we've worked with universities, with the CPD, to make sure that content is right and would have a lasting impact. So that was one reason that we brought the researcher in. The other side of that was also because, as many people will be aware, there's lots of statistics around mental health out there, and they're all different. You never quite know which is the right one. So I set off with a mission to get my own. So we actually went out to 2,000 employees and 200 businesses in October last year to say, look, tell us what the state of mental health is in the workplace. Give us an idea of whether things have changed or what the current state of play is. And we did that. And from that, we were able to, one, make sure that what we were doing was absolutely right and relative to what was going on, but also that we were, we weren't surprised, but we were disappointed with the results, because despite, I guess, the focus that's been around mental health that probably started 4 or 5 years ago, there's been no real movement in terms of how people feel about it, and especially in the workplace. So it gave us something as a bit of a kind of measurable mission, if you like, to be able to see whether we are going to be making a difference and we're going to be changing people's lives in the workplace. So that was where my starting point was. And then we supported that with trainers, people who, could train the content, knew about mental health, to support that researcher role. But yeah, it was my first thought, because I wanted the credibility of what we did. I wanted it to be right, and meaningful.
It goes a long way, I think, as well. I think obviously MenTalk2 we recently, as you'll have seen, and we're very much a part of, and then we released some stats from that research, which are around men within the workplace, but also more importantly male leaders. And I think you used the term, like, we weren't surprised but disappointed, and it just hit home from me. And seeing those kind of figures were kind of disappointing, but also it gives us a starting point, doesn't it? We know where we are today, and we know where we need to get to, and it's a case of kind of being able to implement that, because there's a lot of organisations that are doing amazing work, and this is what we want to kind of shine a light on, really, as well. So kind of going from that, so you've completed the research, we're starting to deliver training. Where did the idea for MenTalk2 come from?
So I think, as part of the research, obviously, like we say, the stats weren't surprising, and we knew that from a leadership perspective, there was a lot of work to do. So I think leaders often underestimate the impact they can have on an organisation and a person who's working with them, in terms of how they act, how they behave, what they say, can all have a real impact, positively or negatively, on somebody's mental health. So we did a lot of work around leadership, and that was driven by some of the stats. As you said, over 90% of leaders, whether it was male or female, believed there was still stigma in the workplace. And around 70% of those people saw people with a mental health issue as a liability in the workplace. So this education around people being able to thrive at work is a huge challenge for us, because right now that perception isn't there. The perception is that, if people have got a mental health issue, then they're more of a concern than, and they should be away from work rather than being able to remain in and thrive. And then obviously through some of the work that we do and some of the reading that I've done, you start to just realise the differences between gender, male and female, in terms of mental health. And we obviously deliver the mental health first aid course, and that talks a little bit about the statistical difference between men and women. And again, that got me more curious about male dominated environments, so that we know that that men can find it difficult to talk about their feelings if they're not in a supportive environment, and that can quite often lead to men struggling with their feelings in a way that sadly can lead to suicide. And that got me really kind of passionate about wanting to change work lives for men, and look at how we can do that. So how can we help to educate within those businesses that predominantly are male dominated, and at the same time educate businesses that aren't around the stigma around men at work, as well as the stigma that we know exists today. So I decided that to have some real focus on that. So we had our core offering, which suits both obviously men and women, but I wanted some real dedicated focus on looking after those industries where they were predominantly male dominated. So your likes of construction or logistics, those areas where we know have got a high population of men. And then and that's what led me to MenTalk2 and to you, really, Dan. I thought we need somebody to head up this division that understands it, but also is as passionate about it as I am, to break that stigma when it comes to men in the workplace. And obviously I know you've been very open about your mental health in the past, Dan, and your passion for being able to change that perception and break that stigma. And that's, and that's really how we got to MenTalk2. I remember us being sat in our offices, Dan, thinking about, right, what we're going to call this division. When you joined, we knew what it was focused on, but we wanted something that really kind of landed. And we came up with the MenTalk2 kind of name, which I think, says it all, really.
Yeah, and I think it's an important message to kind of put out there, isn't it? That the fact that to take a sledgehammer to the stigma around men don't talk, that we know that they do. It's about providing, like you said, that psychologically safe environment to be able to do that. And I think some recent research that I've been looking at, it shows that men are actually more likely to talk to a colleague at work than they are to talk to their own family. So if we're able to work with businesses, and businesses are able to create that open, positive culture in which all men can talk, we can start to see a reduction of the terrible statistics around suicide. And it's about making these conversations normal, isn't it? It's about talking in the same way that I talk about pulling a hamstring playing football, is talking about my mental health when I'm struggling. And I know that working within the Talk Out group, we don't just talk the talk, so to speak. We absolutely do create that environment, which is all credit to yourself, Jill, because I know we talk openly and often, and I think that's what it needs, isn't it? It's that everyday conversation.
Yeah,
it's really what we need.
It goes back to the leader discussion we had. So, if you're in a business that has a leader that isn't open about mental health, or you feel there's a consequence to doing that, then you're not going to talk about your mental health at work. And I think, through my own experiences, I've really come to understand that you can thrive in work with a mental health issue if you've got the support around you. And I think, given my own experiences where I probably didn't feel like I had that support when I was struggling with mental health, that made me even more determined to provide that psychologically safe environment for anyone that works within our teams. And then that extends then to the businesses that we work with. So
amazing. Well, Jill, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy lady. So thank you very much for joining us on MenTalk2 Presents. And anyone listening to this, you can obviously reach out and contact myself on LinkedIn, can contact Jill on LinkedIn, and any member of the team to discuss any issues with regard to providing that positive mental health within the workplace. So keep an eye on our YouTube channel and also across LinkedIn, where we'll be releasing more interviews along this line. But yeah, finally from me, big thanks to you, Jill.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.